at the minute, Bernice. So
Oh, that's great. The holy
hear you.
season of Lent and all that good stuff. Change behaviours.
it's up to yourselves.
That's
as
right,
judges.
Bernice.
I don't have much on the night really anyway, just a few points. Right, okay.
Are we all right? Okay. Well, members, we'll make a wee start. We'll welcome you to the Environmental Services Committee. And we're in the Grange Home on the 2nd of March 2022. And we'll welcome those in the chamber with us and those on WebEx to the meeting tonight. So, members, we do have quite an agenda and we will endeavour to get the business completed tonight. And we'll be asking for your cooperation with us tonight in the meeting. Just at the outset, I would like to say that I was appalled last night at some of the behaviour towards the chair, and I think it was totally unacceptable by some members, and it won't be accepted in the chamber or on WebEx tonight. So I'd asked all members to work with the chair. I would like to be treated by members the way that they would like to be treated themselves, with some respect. So I'd asked all members just to bear that in mind tonight. Thank you. So we'll get on with the agenda, members. Any apologies? Item number 1. We'll go to the group leaders, please. Councillor Maguire.
Mark, thank you. Mark, I have no apologies from the Sinn Féin group tonight. Margaret, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Irvine.
Evening, Chair. No apologies from the UUP group. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garrity.
Thank you, Chair. No apologies this evening from our group. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Paul Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Paul Stevenson and Councillor Elliott will be late joining us.
Thank you. And is there any other apologies, members? Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, apologies from Councillor O'Coffey, who's running a bit late. And in relation to your opening remarks, hopefully we'll be afforded a modicum of respect from the Chair, which was sadly missing last night. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we'll record that apology. And no other apologies, members? Okay. The next item on the agenda is item number 2, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of the previous meeting held on the 2nd of February 2022. Members, on them minutes have been signed. Item number 3, is there any declarations of interest? Don't see anyone in the chamber. Okay, members, don't see any. Councillor Garrity just there.
Just maybe keep 6.2, maybe is member Tullyvar. Just keep separate.
Thank you. Okay, members. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I am unable to join you in the chamber this evening. However, I will declare an interest in Tullyvar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Rainey? Councillor Rainey, likewise. Okay. Thank you, members. If there's any others, we'll catch them as we go. We'll move on to matters arising. Item number 4. And this is the minutes of the Environmental Services Committee held on the 2nd of February. We'll go through the members page by page. And we will, just to make you aware, we'll pick up some of the pieces of correspondence, I believe, as we go through as well. So, page 1, page 2. John, on page 2.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just in relation to item 4.1 there, the Department for the Economy local spend cards, I think this was referred to at last night's full council meeting. At 4.1 of the agenda, you will see the reply from the Department of Agriculture in relation to the local spend cards and a number of queries which the council had in relation to them. They provide statistics on the number of people who are eligible to apply, and whilst they talk about the mid-year population projections for those 18 and over, or for 2021, which were produced by NISRA, that is just an average, and it's not possible to provide an exact figure of the number of eligible people. At part 2 of the reply, they note that 1.436 million applications were made to the spend local cards. And in relation to the number who used some or all of their £100 entitlements, they are unable to release the information because they are releasing it in the near future. And so therefore they say that it is exempt. There's also information on how the personal information is to be used, and clarification on why existing benefit system or the tax system was not used to distribute the £100 entitlement. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, John. And I think there was a piece of correspondence, or there was an action from last night's meeting around this issue as well, members, so just bear that in mind. With Councillor Swift there.
Yeah, Gurmagad Kirlock, and really last night's action has been proposed and seconded, and it's the action really that I would have wanted to see happening anyway. You know, for me, it wasn't really about the statistics. My issues moved way beyond the need for any of this knowledge contained in this letter, because they're all very well what was simply required by the majority of councillors, and we've asked for it many times, was how and when constituents who applied, all the constituents who sent in all the required details, will receive their £100 payment. And that's still outstanding for us in the council. And it's a very simple question to answer, really. And as I said last night, Minister Lyons has publicly promised everyone who applied would be repaid. So what's still outstanding is the fact we want to know how and when, because constituents were beyond frustrated in sending lots of bureaucratic correspondence to identify and validate themselves, and with no response whatsoever from the department, either by email or telephone, which frustrated the entire process. But if it gets resolved, it's all good. So John, if we can make sure that that is as a matter of urgency, all the details contained within. And indeed, if the department can't manage it, John, that maybe we bear in mind the fact that we have constituents who have an entire paper trail of their applications. If we can make it easier, even for the department, just to get this little problem sorted out, that we would do that. Gurmagad.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barry McElduff.
Agree 100% with what Councillor Swift has just said. We did cover it last night. We did agree actions, etc. But even this evening, I got a call, about an individual. So we are carrying around with us fairly significant administrative burden as councillors. Lists and national insurance numbers and dates of births, and that's what we're doing. And we can slip up. If there's 45 people depending on each of us, well, then maybe we'll only help 42, maybe 3 will fall between the cracks. There needs to be some fail-safe mechanism where everybody who has applied will get this £100. I'm speaking to people, some of whom have learning disabilities. And just because someone has a learning disability doesn't mean they should be conned out of £100 by a government department when it was set up to help them. So I do feel very strongly about it. Other councillors have asked for a dedicated phone line number, but again, I won't just rehearse everything that we said last night, but it's not fair, it's wrong, it's unjust that our neighbours, many of them, and our constituents have been conned out of £100. So Bernice did say how and when, and those are my exact thoughts as well. How will it be paid and when will it be paid? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McElduff. And Councillor Chris McCaffrey.
Thank you, Chair. Gurmagad. And I'll just echo what's been said by my council colleagues. I think it is absolutely disgraceful. This did come up last night, so I'm not going to go back into the argument, but I know that the reason given for some of the people not getting their £100 at that time was due to things like the card provider and issues along with that. So very vague issues as to why these applications weren't processed in time. And that it is disgraceful that people have been conned out of the money. So I don't want to go in too deeply to it, but I mean, there was the famous phrase, give the Caesar what is Caesar's. We'll give to the constituents what is theirs, and the £100 must be paid out. They're owed this money, so how and when will it be paid? and let's hope we can get a resolution, because like other councillors, this is something that is affecting everyone. We're getting multiple calls and correspondence coming in from constituents on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members. Could I just have a proposer and seconder to note the correspondence? Councillor Rinne proposed and a seconder. Councillor Mary Gardy. Thank you, members. We'll take on board them comments, John, and look into that. Thank you. Okay, members, well, matters arising, page 3 now.
Yes, Chair. A number of items on page 3 at item 4.3 of the report in the Northern Ireland Water Framework Directive, where we sought or we sent correspondence to Northern Ireland Environment Agency, the Loss Agency, Northern Ireland Water and Department of Agriculture. The responses for all of those are included in the report. The response from the Loss Agency is included at 4.2 and is probably the most important one, in that, you know, they state that they are currently preparing a file to process the incident via the courts, and therefore won't refer to any further information on it. The correspondence from Northern Ireland Water is included at 8.35, from the Department of Agriculture at 8.32, and from the NIEA at 8.34. And if we, Chair, if we could take all of those pieces of correspondence together in as matters raised, that would be good.
Yeah, okay. Members, you have heard the director, and those pieces of correspondence are all in your correspondence folder that have been mentioned, so we'll take them all at this point together. Councillor McAleer. Sorry, Councillor.
Chair, Chair, could I declare an interest in 8.3, I think it is, 8.35.
8.35, okay,
Yeah.
Councillor. Councillor Wilson. Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I suppose first off to note the correspondence, and I'll propose to do so. But in doing so, and being mindful of what's noted in it in terms of it being sub judice, I would ask if we could return, just inquire further the potential outcomes in terms of what might be in relation to not just specifically this case, but other cases where this has happened. In relation to the aspect or element of education that's offered to those found guilty or even questioned in relation to such pollution instances. I'm aware that there may be a fine or a penalty, but just to check if there's anything in relation to making people aware of the consequences of their actions, whether they're intentional or accidental, and whether there's any sort of course or information provided to them to help encourage them not to reoffend or to alert them to the danger of such occurrences. So we would propose that maybe we get back to the relevant body to ask that question. In relation specifically to the email from Silke Hartmann, it's not that straightforward or easy to understand in terms of teasing out what the presence of these toxic substances in our waterways means, and to understand what actions might be taken to protect those higher priority waterways from them. And the council needs to get an additional input, possibly from the environmental health officers, if not the NIEA itself. The UPBT.
Councillor, sorry to butt in, but that report that statistics, we were going to take it separately.
Okay,
just
right.
at that point. So we're just on these correspondence.
Fair enough, Chair. Leave that until
Is that all right?
If I could make that first part then as a proposal, and as I say, happy to propose to note.
Yeah, but it's quite a big report, so we said we would take that separately, just that other one. Have we a seconder for that, members, that proposal? Councillor Bell there's happy to second, okay. And we do have, so that's, and are you happy to second the correspondence as well with that, Councillor Bell? Okay, thank you, members. Do we need to list items of correspondence, John? Are you happy with that? But that's proposed and seconded. Okay, thanks for that, members. That's that item dealt with. We're on page 4 now of matters arising. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. And page 10, I'll go to John New for page 10.
Thank you, Chair. Matters arising, we had written to the Minister that regarding, members had asked that we write to the Minister regarding the lack of appointment of an asphalt contractor. And right. Sorry, Chair. I've looked at the two pieces of correspondence. I'm on, yeah, lack of an asphalt resurfacing contractor, and asking the Minister and DFI Roads to increase the frequency of inspections and staff resources in the district to enable routine safety inspections and issues to be identified and addressed in a more timely manner. The Minister has written back and noted that first phase of new term contracts for asphalt resurfacing is currently being tendered with an anticipated award date in March 2022. And in relation to the increase in the frequency of inspections and staff resources in the district, has noted that due to budget constraints, the department was obliged to implement a limited service policy in respect of the repair of surface defects in 2015, and that has continued in recent years and is currently in force in this current year, 2021-22. They provided a link to the policy and concludes by noting that the outworking of this policy is that the department is only able to repair the most serious of defects, and all roads in the Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area are being inspected on a regular basis, and defects identified that meet the current criteria for being programmed for repair.
Okay. Councillor McElduff.
To the Divisional Roads Manager, asking questions about budget and staffing levels, because informal conversations that one might have with DFA roads people, they'll talk about, for example, at this end of the council district, they'll talk about how diminished Arvely Depot is in terms of staffing levels compared to 5 years ago. They'll talk about an aging workforce. So what strategy is there in place to ensure that we have adequate budget and adequate staffing levels for the future? And also, seek confirmation from the Divisional Roads Manager that that information is being fed into the Minister's office so that the Minister can include rural roads deficit in bidding for departmental money. So, how's that working? Can we get an assurance that the budget, which is inadequate for rural roads in Fermanagh and Omagh Council area, that is part of a bid for additional funding to the Department of Finance and Personnel? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are you happy to note the correspondence, Councillor?
Yes, indeed.
Aside that proposal, thank you. Councillor Alan Rainick.
Yeah, Chair, and I'm happy to second that.
Thank you.
A good number of years ago, Harold Henry was the engineer for West Tyrone, and when we put him under some pressure, he says, "I have only got 14 men, and the length of road that I'm responsible for would reach from here to Cork." He says, "You can imagine stretching 14 men out from here to Cork, what impression they would make. If it has got considerably worse since, well then, the writing's on the wall. We're not adequately covered for personnel to do any manner of work." I'm not going to go into specifics, but on the A5, I can't help but mention it. At the bottom of the hill coming down from Kelly's, the flooding there is unbelievable, and the gratings are full, and they have remained full now for a long period of time. And if the gratings couldn't be cleared on the A5, well then we may give up all hope altogether. I would stop to clear them, but it's no place for a senior citizen clearing vennels on the A5 without adequate clothing.
Thank you, Councillor Rainey, for that. We'll take the councillors just now on WebEx. Councillor Wilson. Sorry, Councillor Wilson. Just unmute if you can.
Yeah. Yes, Chair. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. No, well, it's just too bad. I support what the other councillors are saying, and it has come to the stage when I know for my own behalf, I have contacted road service on numerous occasions to do with potholes and really dangerous places. But you get a kind of to the stage where you get fed up when you're getting no results, and you've actually directed them to the road service, to the place where everything is. Saturday week last, there was a, a private contractor obviously brought in to do a job, and it wasn't an OMA to the local people, were on to me on the Cavan Road as to the state that I don't know what he got paid for doing, but obviously they didn't think that he had done quite a lot or anything of any benefit anyway. So I think we need to get some results to tell the people. There's different places that I have been in contact maybe half a dozen times about, and I have actually spoke to the officer and thought I was going to get something done. Nothing's been done, and I just don't know. But you get to the stage where you're wondering, are you losing your time? And I see a man standing on a road around the corner from me here, and definitely he's lucky he had a pair of Wellingtons on him, or he would have been very wet. And I have went through it a couple of times lately, and it's dangerous. It's really bad. The photograph in the con there, Jack McFarlane, that is a disaster. But I drive through it twice a day, and I just got fed up with it and other things as well. So that's just the way it has got, and I'm sure the other councillors feel the same about it as well. But I think we need to be putting on some pressure. Thank you, Chair.
Certainly, there's a lot of problems on our roads now. Councillor Kelly. Catherine Kelly, sorry.
There, yeah, there I am. Yeah, just what Councillor Wilson was saying. It's one thing that we don't have contractors to do the work, but some of the work that has been done locally on the Craig and Carrickmore Road, particularly there between Craig and Crossroads and the First Hill, the quality of the work in the past has been very poor. So I just want to put that on record. You know, it seems to me that there's a lot of money spent making these repairs on roads, and within months, the roads are in tatters again. So it's the quality of the work that's also an issue. So that's it. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Seamus Green.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to the whole road service DFI budgets and how they're being allocated. A few years ago, we had the managers of road service in the district out at Dernawilt Crossroads in relation to a safety issue that I might say still hasn't been resolved. And the guy that was over the safety, I'll not mention his name, in the Western region of road service, give an example that 7 years ago they were allocated 700,000 per year to upgrade where the deemed like bad corners or bad junctions or bad bends in the Western region. Now it's 70,000. So from 700,000 down to 70,000, that's what they were administering. And I would like to know, you know, is that a general thing on budgets in the Western Division? Because I believe, and I'm quite confident in what I'm saying here, maybe somebody will contradict me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly confident that last year DFI got the biggest allocation of money in the history of that department. And if 70,000 has been presented to fix safety, bad bends, junctions, all of that, and 7-8 years ago it was 700,000. What does the other budgets look like? It's actually quite disgusting, and it's actually quite disturbing when you think that there has been like, I don't know what percentage of a cut you'd call that, from 700,000 down to 70. When you take in inflation and everything, like, it would hardly even make it worthwhile for them to have anyone employed on a safety issue in the Western region if there's only 70,000 to spend. So my question would be, what is the other budgets? How have they been affected in the Western region? And I would propose that we write to the Minister and ask that, can the budget for instance, safety, for road maintenance, for all the other, I just can't think of them, but I'm sure they'll have them, for all the other budgets in our region over the last number of years, have they went up or have they went down? And that's a proposal I would make.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Erda Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. And I have to agree with a lot of the speakers coming before me. Councillor McAduff referred to the Arvalee depot. To me, Arvalee depot has been completely depleted from what it would have been several years ago. And obviously, others have mentioned the budgets coming to the western area. I mean, you only have to go around the two county towns of Omagh and Enniskillen. Not even thinking of the B and C roads. You only have to look at our own A roads and our town and the streets around our towns to see what's going on there. So there's some serious questions to be asked of the Minister on this issue, because it's the only way we're going to try and get it resolved. And as I say, there are a lot of people that's retired and have not been replaced. And we had a great function about 2 weeks ago there for the outgoing Western manager, David McKinley. And we were sorry to see him go, but he's moved on, he's retired. And we haven't got a replacement for him yet. We're acting up, but we haven't got his replacement yet. It'll be interesting to see what way that all pans out in the days and months ahead. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Glenn Campbell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I just want to add my support to the comments. I totally agree with all that's been said previously. It's very discouraging to see the infrastructure in place to deal with the roads issue. That it's lacking, that it's being diminished, and that there doesn't seem to be any planning to address that, let alone maintain things. It's only going to get worse, it would seem. And I would agree with Councillor Kelly as well in relation to the quality of the work. I mean, frequently, and I hear it in every other councillor's voice, we act as a buffer for the frustration of our constituents. We act as the buffer, taking on the issues and trying to raise the road service. But frequently, when work is carried out, we are disappointed with the quality, and I could cite recent examples on Altnavira Road and Dunbiggin Road in Eskra, where constituents have come back and said they've done a bit eventually, but it's not enough, or it's a mixture of screenings and tires blown into the pothole that'll be as bad as ever in a few weeks, and we've heard that too many times. So I think we need to look at the quality of the work being done, but we also seriously need to lobby for more money, because it's just, as we all know, it's lacking. Thank you, Chairman.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything too much different from what's been said, but there does seem to be a serious lack of, at times, common sense and joined up thinking in relation to this department in particular. And there have been numerous examples from every DEA across this district where there's work being carried out on one stretch of road and a couple of yards or a couple of meters up the road is left untouched, even though it's in as bad, if not worse, condition. And I could name numerous examples. Recently in the town here, the Glen Cam Road was resurfaced. There's parts either end of the bit that was done that are shambolic state. Out my own area has already been mentioned, the Craig and Carrickmore Road, the main Omagh Cookstown Road, the main east to west transport or corridor in this county is an absolute disgrace. But it seems to be, again, the same patches and the same stretches of road are continually in need of upgrade and assessment and work. And it's really not good enough, but the finger of blame is pointed squarely at this department, because they were the ones that messed up when it came to the original contract award in terms of sourcing the asphalt. And it's the chickens are coming home to roost now. Councillors will say about years of lack of investment in this part of the country. Fermanagh and Omagh have suffered for a long number of years before my time, they were a poor relation and a poor neighbour. It hasn't improved, but it needs to improve. And I think when you talk about increased budgets, you have to see some sort of a reward and some sort of a benefit of that. People have been crying out now for how many years for the A5. Again, the amount of money that's been wasted there, wasted on consultants' fees, it's just not good enough. So absolutely, I'm in favour of any strong message going back from this council to the department and to the minister. Again, given the current limbo situation that we have in Stormont, I'm not sure what good it's going to do, but any strong statement coming out of this council needs to be made. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And the final speaker, please, members, Councillor Anthony Feely.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not going to go what every other councillor says, but we could all name roads in our areas as bad, including myself. The issue of flooding this last couple of weeks around Bow and the Belcool Road there was serious there. But I was just, Seamus made a proposal there, and I don't think anybody seconded it, so I just second Seamus' proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Feely. Okay, members, so that we were on the item there, 8 and correspondence 8.33, which was around the lack of asphalt resurfacing contractors. So we had it proposed by Councillor McElduff and seconded by Councillor Rainey, and there was a proposal incorporated within that by Councillor McElduff that we write to the Divisional Roads Manager here. And then we had a separate proposal from Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Feely, that we write to the Minister, and that was around the budgets and several other items. So I think if members are content with that, thank you. We'll move on. We're still on matters arising. Members, there was another item of correspondence there that we can pick up, and it's 834. And if we go to John, it's around the winter gritting service.
Thank you, Chair. And the February meeting, members had asked that we write to the Department, the Minister, asking for clarification around the rural proofing of the Department's winter gritting schedule. The Department have now written back, the Minister written back, notes that application of the policy, the winter gritting policy, means that 28% of the total road network carries 80% of the traffic, and that's what's salted. The Department's winter service policy remains in place. Then the correspondence notes that rural roads make up 77% of the total salted road network. However, it also goes on to note that while no formal rural needs assessment has been carried out, it would be considered that the current policy has due regard within the funding that is available for the roads, for the needs of all road users, including those that use rural roads. Department fully understands and appreciates the concerns of those who use more lightly trafficked roads and would like to be able to expand the service. However, this is simply not feasible given the expected future resource budget constraints.
Okay. Note. Thank you. It is for noting, members. It's maybe not the response that we anticipated, but Councillor Kelly. Catherine Kelly, yeah.
It's unusual. That's not good to hear, that there's not going to be more money. Last week, I had nursing assistants and farmers who couldn't get up or down roads due to the snow on the rural roads. I had one expecting a big delivery, eggs and hens. A truck got stuck on the road at the same time. I have to give credit where it's due. I had a funeral in the constituency last week, and Sean made sure that the road and the lane and everything was gritted so that the funeral could get into the village of Carrickmore. So while it's really bad news that we're not going to get grit boxes on rural roads or more of them where they're needed, I have to give credit where it's due as well. Thanks.
Be happy to propose to note that. Thank you, Councillor Catherine Kelly. Okay, well, Councillor Seamus Green has hand up there.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's extremely disappointing, not surprising, but it's extremely disappointing. I don't know, like they said that there hasn't been a rural needs thing carried out, or it hasn't been rural proofed. The question has to be asked why, and are they going to do that? I'm reluctant to propose writing another letter, but I think that that does need to be asked. And I don't know what other councillors has had experience with road service, but I'm getting it virtually impossible to get anybody to answer a phone. anyone in authority. I'm getting it extremely hard to get anybody to answer an email. So I would propose that we do write that letter back and ask about the rural needs. When has it been done, and or why it hasn't been done, and when are they going to carry it out? And I also would propose that we ask them to set up a dedicated elected reps line, because it is absolutely ridiculous that we can't, as elected reps, get in touch with anybody for maybe a week at a time. Nobody will ring you back, and I have a wee dog here that's getting very aggressive behind me, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. No, I'm happy enough to second those proposals. Just taking one line from the response in front of us, it's worth noting that rural roads make up over 77% of the total salted road network. I'm wondering, in this rural district, what percentage of roads would be classified as rural, because I would imagine it's well over 77%. So in the grand scheme of thing, when you're looking overall at rural roads in the wider scheme, it's having a more detrimental impact in this rural district. So again, the figures can be skewed whenever they need to be or whenever they want to be. So it's, again, just to stress that point, that it's a larger impact on this and a larger adverse impact on this rural district. Thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Barry McElduff.
I'd like to second Councillor Green's proposal. And, Councillor Green and others have emphasised the rural character of our district to such an extent, quite rightly, that we've established a rural affairs subcommittee, which is very important. And government talks about 80-20. And really what they're saying is, we'll deal with the urban, we'll not bother with the rural. The 80-20 comes through in this case, where it says we grit 80%, we reach 80% of the traffic by gritting, is it 20% of the network? It's like the famous 80-20 rule in government, and that's a disguise for discrimination against rural. We grit, we cover 80% of the traffic by gritting 20% of the network. It's an old trick, that one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McElduff. Councillor Anthony Feely.
Yeah, thanks you, Chair, and I'll be brief again because I think Councillor McAleer second Seamus' proposal there. No, just coming in the same, I'm another rural councillor here, and 2 days last week there, people couldn't get to work from my area. The school bus didn't go, the home help people didn't get out, and in fact, if they'd only great about 3 or 4 mile of a road to get to the main road, all that would be sorted out. So I think it's very disappointing, and I have to look at this again. Roads like that there aren't really a main road, but to get you to a main road should be greater for. They lose them all out than they gain, with people not getting to work, people not getting to school. As I say, I couldn't even get to the market myself last Thursday morning. I was bringing cattle. I couldn't get up our road, it was too slippy. So to just want to look into it more and just think of the rural people more than they are, So, but Seamus has proposed it to second, so that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Feely. Councillor Bernice Swift.
Yeah, just very quickly, and to share and concur and give voice again too. And it's a well-known and long vexed issue of the roads in rural Bow area, and particularly with the flooding last week. Once the snow had melted and the consistent rainfall, it created such exasperating issues of all of the constituents in that area. Roads were not passable. Now, while we do have the emergency resilience group plan in place, it has to come back to, again, the number of properties and people who are affected with the risk of flooding from the Sillis River has to be addressed by the Executive Office, and investment is needed. And what was needed in the Bow area to get through roads last week, to even see roads, would have been submarines. And I don't jest when I say that. And for everybody who was trying to go to work, try to go to schools, try to go to church, and every aspect and category of their lives was thwarted because roads were not passable. Now, we know everything to do with climate change and all of that, and the very statutory authorities that have to work on these problems say investment is key. So I would just like to make a proposal that the executive office, whenever it is back running and working, that they have a concerted approach to sitting and really actively listening and engaging with the entire BOW network and the resilience group. People are sick of the word being pushed at them now to be resilient every time the rain falls and leaves them flooded. It's just gone beyond that now, as being put back on the people to have to sort out the problem. We need investment, and we need much better response. And people have been patient for far too long. And again, ministers have failed them in the past. It's not good enough. It's no longer acceptable. Gurmagat.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Siobhan Curry.
Gurmagat Caherly, and I'm not sure I agree with the intent of that, but I think I'd have to declare an interest just on seconding Courier Swift's proposal, as I'm sure she'll understand, just with representing the council on the Drainage Council. And I know she's had that fight over a number of years with them, so just not to prejudice anything there, Chair, but just to support, I mean, this is really putting in black and white what the crux of the issue is that we are having with the Department for Infrastructure. In black and white there, it tells us that there's no formal rural needs assessment carried out. And that is what we are talking about time and time again when we're talking about the disparity with what is spent in rural areas in the West and in our own council district, and the state that they consider that they take due regard to rural issues. But we are seeing time and time again the absolute lack of prioritisation of rural roads, and we've heard it several times now, Chair, that they have had the biggest budget that was ever allocated to Department for Infrastructure. That's a fact. And the reality is that it is just not being prioritised. And, they're sending us these letters and even, like, I'm a little bit offended actually that they even feel the need to say, even on roads that are gritted, ice-free conditions can't be guaranteed. I mean, who do they think they're talking to? We understand you don't need to bulk letters out when you've got nothing to say. So just to make that point, Chair, I note also that the department is making reference to the level of resource available being determined by the outcome of budget 22 to 25. Now we know because of the First Minister walking out of the office that is not actually able to happen because 3-year budget cannot be set, and I think that would have been really transformative, especially to all departments, but particularly to the health department, where we know there's massive challenges, and a 3-year budget would have really helped, but not exclusively with the health department, with all departments. So I don't know. I think we should actually write to the executive office as a corporate body expressing our total dissatisfaction that a 3-year budget, which would have had positive impact across the board, hasn't been set and can't be set, and to make our dissatisfaction about that known. Chair, Gurmagat,
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Curry. And Councillor Feely, is your hand up just a second? Bernice's proposal.
Yeah, I can. I just want to say 1 week. Thanks for letting me back in there, Chair. Just want one wee brief comment about it too. Yeah, and I did mention Bo earlier on there when I came in before. An awful handling up there last week. I was up there myself, and men's cattle sheds and all was flooded out. And I know I second Bernice's proposal, but I think more has to be done. Maybe Road Service, River Agency, ourselves, and Department of Agriculture all get into the room and talk about it and try and get it discussed out. So the people have been suffering up there long enough, and it's a serious handling. And I can second, when I am on talking, I can second Siobhan's proposal there too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, member. So there's quite a bit of rising out of that. We were we were noting the correspondence item 8.3.4 on the winter gritting, and that was proposed by Councillor Kelly, seconded Councillor Catherine Kelly, and seconded by Councillor Emmett McAleer. We had a proposal in by Councillor Green, which was seconded by Councillor McAleer as well, around rural needs and establishing an elected reps line. So if members agreed that was to road service, or sorry, yep, a correction to the minister, sorry, that was to. And then we had a proposal then from Councillor Swift, and that was by Councillor Anthony Feely, that we write to the Executive Office, and Councillor Curry made comment on that as well. Our members agreed with them pieces of correspondence. Thank you. We'll go through matters, just for still matters arising, page 10 and page 11, page 12 and 13. Thank you, members. We'll move now to item 5 as our Environment and Place Director reports. 5.1 is to consider the report on estates matters, paper A.
Thank you, Chair. Paper 5.1 is estate matters and sets out a number of key issues for decision, and also some others to note. Particular members, a decision in respect of lands at Tamla Road, Lammy, Oma, and cycle parking and signage project in which has been fully funded by DFI under an active travel grant. Then the provision of cafe operations following an expressions of interest exercise for Struil Arts Centre, Oma, Ardo 1 Theatre, Enniskillen and Enniskillen Castle. 2.4 is permission to conduct an expression of interest exercise for a suitable provider of water-based recreation activities at Mill Loch, Killyfoal. And then we have a number of requests for use of council property. Enniskillen Castle at 9 dates in the middle of March from D and M events. And then request to use Gorchin Glen Forest Park on the 9th and 10th of April from First Tracks MTB. And then a number of matters for information in section 3 are also recorded there. DFI Rivers in terms of an intention to carry out works at Tamla Road, Brookmount Road and Oma. And then retrospective noting of the use of Kesh Community Centre in Kesh. And then finally 3.3, the sealing of documents in respect of a number of a conveyance issue.
Thank you, John. Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I propose the adoption of the recommendations 9.1 and 9.2? And I have a particular interest in 9.1.1, the Tamlet Road, the St. Eugene's Band Hall, Colmore Old School. I facilitated the meeting between St. Eugene's Band and council officials. Stephen and Kieran attended on behalf of the council, and I would thank them for their participation. And this is just a necessary bit of housekeeping, you might say, to ensure that a new security fence can be erected most effectively at that location. You know, the council has supported St. Eugene's Band in acquiring the fence, and now will be facilitating its safe erection and at the best possible location. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that proposal, Councillor. Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you very much, Chair, and likewise, I mean, I want to welcome the fact that we will have this legal agreement being entered into, and the provision of a new security fence, which I think will be enormously useful in this part of the town. So I'm more than happy just to second the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Could I get a wee bit more information, please, on item 2.4, the water-based recreation activities at Killyfoal? What exactly are we looking at there? Is there any specific activities? Can I get a wee bit more information on that, please? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor. John.
Yeah, Chair. I think what we're actually looking for is actually an expression of interest to see what could happen there. We have had a number of approaches from a number of bodies for the likes of kayak and canoeing and those sorts of activities, and it is a safe water. And it is something that we would be keen to explore, but given our procurement processes, we just have to go for an expression of interest in that regard.
Thanks for that update, John. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's just a quick comment in relation to the 2.1, and it's very encouraging. Just the second, or the last paragraph on that page under 2.1, page 1. that the council's noting there are mature trees on the council lands, and the band will be required to ensure that no damage is caused to these trees during the removal of the existing fence and installation of the new fence. I suppose given a number of stories across different councils, district and borough councils in the north at the minute, where mature trees and other trees are being sacrificed and being removed, it's good to acknowledge that this council is doing something to preserve and protect the natural environment around us. So just to make a quick comment on that, Chair, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tommy Maguire.
Gormagan Carney, thanks, Chair. Just if I could ask a question in relation to 2.5.1, the Enniskillen Castle event, D&M events. It seems to be quite a major event, but I have to say that I haven't seen much communication or advertising about it. And I wonder, have I just missed it, or is it anticipated to be a fairly major event? If there's any further information, Chair, please. Gormagan.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Councillor. We'll get that for you.
Chair, the D&M events, the event is known as it's live at the castle. It does appear to be quite a major series of music events in Enniskillen Castle. The promotion is, I'll have to say, it appears to be largely online, but it is supported by Enniskillen Bid. I have to say, when you look through the list of the musical acts appearing, some of them may be more familiar to it. There's a variety of different music acts appearing over the course of the 9 days, from including through the dance music, but there's a variety of different acts, and it's being promoted through D&M events online.
You happy enough, Councillor Maguire?
Yeah, thanks for that, John. Hopefully it'll be a success. Gormagan, thank you.
Okay. Members are free. They'd be welcome to attend, I'm sure, in the evening. £27 a ticket. Okay. Thank you for that. Did we get a proposer and seconder for that? We had, yeah. Okay. Thank you, members. We'll move on now to 5.2 in the agenda. To consider a report on draft response to the consultation on the introduction of mandatory digital waste tracking, and that's paper B.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Members will recall we had highlighted this upcoming consultation that's been led by DAERA, Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs in Northern Ireland, but as part of a UK-wide consultation that's being led by DEFRA, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. The consultation opened on the 21st of January and ends on the 15th of April. Consultation notes that governments across the UK have committed to implementing and mandating a digital recording of waste movements subject to consultation, and are committed to working with the industry on the development of that system. There's provision for the introduction of these new powers within the Environment Act 2021. The department, it's worth noting, members may wish to note that the department will use the feedback to review and refine the proposals, and this will then be reflected in secondary legislation. And they have noted that they don't intend to run further public consultations on the secondary legislation. A number of key issues within the draft response for members' consideration are highlighted in section 2. Overall, officers are of the view that the development of an electronic waste tracking system is to be welcomed. We currently use the waste data flow, and this new system would replace that. It would also be intended to replace most, if not all, of the paper records that are currently used. A number of matters that are particularly then worth drawing attention to is that this consultation proposes a controlled waste and extractive waste will be covered by the information regarding the requirements for digital waste tracking service. Furthermore, the waste tracking service would capture the full journey of waste from the point that it's produced and transferred to another person or site to the point when it reaches its end destination. Paragraph 2.4 sets out the nature of some of those activities, whether it's waste transferred to another person or company, waste moved between sites that are managed by the same person, or waste is treated by the waste holder on site by the waste holder. Finally, 2.5 highlighted a number of potential implications for the user of the system, and there will be the consultation explains what those implications would be, whether you're a business disposing of waste, a householder, or a waste collection authority, or a waste site operator. From a resident's perspective, this will not impact on council bin collections. When the household resident gets other waste collected, however, in a skip, for example, which they may have hired in, which and it's put there or filled by either the householder or a tradesperson working for them, then the person or the businesses collecting the waste will generate a digital record. As a local authority, we will not need to track the waste from individual households. It will, however, be recorded at the point in which it's received into our receiving sites. The consultation also explains the principle and developed in line with the polluter pays, and proposes that the cost of the ongoing operation and maintenance of the service and regulatory work will be met by the service users. Therefore, its recommendation is that Council notes the contents of the report and agrees the response at Appendix 1 and is submitted to DAERA as a response to this consultation before the closing date on the 15th of April.
Thanks very much for that, John. And I believe we had a heads up on this at last month's meeting, and if members wish to add anything major to it, that they were invited to do so. And members have seen it. Councillor O'Coffey is first. Straight to you, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is obviously a very significant transition, and there's a lot of reading to this. I think obviously the approach being taken is broadly to welcome it, and I think that's entirely right. Openness and transparency around how waste is being treated is something that we should certainly support. The indication from the response we've drafted is that this will probably result in higher costs to the council and in terms of administration. So obviously the question is really, because on page 56, I think we say that we find that financial or cost savings, we disagree that they will be made. So the question is really, have we any estimate of how much will be involved? The other question really is around, I also note that as opposed to, I don't think that this does really reflect the producer pays principle. It effectively represents the collector pays principle. So the council and other bodies who effectively collect waste are the ones who will be the service users and therefore bear the brunt of the cost, as opposed to those who produce the waste in the first place. And there are issues, obviously. The one thing I think it's fairly clear here that although there may be an indirect passing on of charges to the public, it would appear to me that this is really about council. We could end up carrying the can, but I see on page 53, we're suggesting that it be deducted from the landfill tax. Now, it really matters how much it is compared to the landfill tax. And if landfill tax has proven very useful to us in the past in regard to resource to finance environmental improvement projects within the radius of the landfill zones, I would be slightly concerned if this was to undermine the amount of money that we'd be able to deploy under the landfill tax. Perhaps a better approach would be for this to be paid through general, universal, and progressive taxation, direct taxation. But really, that's a question whether, if we have any, it really matters how much this is likely to be. Do we have any indication of the costs?
Thank you. Sure. John.
Thank you, Chair. Within the draft response, I think what we've tried to do is highlight the risk that until we see what the system looks like, the consultation sets out a number of proposals, and the consultation suggests or sets out a case that there will be efficiencies and cost savings, and officers don't believe that has been suitably demonstrated within the consultation. So therefore, I think we're highlighting the risk that there may be additional costs. It is also worth noting that we've said that the intention would be to set aside some of the current paper processes, so those additional costs may be offset, but until an actual model is put forward, it wouldn't be possible to model up what the actual cost implication would be.
Thanks for that, John. Councillor Alan Rainey.
Chair, I'm happy to propose that we note the contents of the report.
Thank you. And have we a seconder for that, members? Councillor O'Coffey, thank you. As proposed and seconded, members, the consultation response. Okay, and all agreed. Thank you. We'll move to item 5.3, is to consider report and draft assisted bin lift and additional bin collection policy, paper C.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide members with a draft policy for assisted bin lift and additional bin collection. Policy sets out the application process for both services and the information required to support the application, how the applications will be assessed, and guidance on the appeals process, and sets out a timeline for a decision in respect of any application that's made. We currently provide these services through our overall refuge collection service, and this combined policy is intended to ensure that the process is user-friendly and transparent. The Council's Disability Advisory Group were consulted on the policy, and it was presented to members in January of this year, and there were no concerns raised at that time. I suppose the key issue really in bringing forward this policy for members' consideration is that the district is home to approximately 46,000 households, and latest statistics are projecting a 2% rise in the population by 2030. But more notable within that is that the over 65 population is projected to rise by 28%, with a decrease in those aged under 40 years of age. Life expectancy is also generally increasing, and more people are staying in their homes through support from care in the community. And it's therefore important that Council is able to support those residents and provide these additional refuge services where the relevant criteria are met. 2.2 set out some background information. We currently provide 187 assisted bin lifts across the area, and this service enables council employees to enter external areas off a property to collect and return a bin from an approved location. The service is very much aimed at those residents who have no other person or persons to assist them with setting out bins for collection, and that may be due to medical conditions or a disability. Each application will be assessed on a case-by-case basis, and Appendix 4 sets out the internal assessment forms and the steps that will be taken into account in the determination of each application. The additional bin collection policy is, in some respects, it's separate, but it may also be complementary. Council currently provides 230 additional bins for non-recycling waste across the districts, and this is very much for households that require collection of a second black or a green bin for residual waste, and that may be to dispose of materials due to a medical condition of a household member, or where the number of occupants within a household is 8 or more. In looking at considering applications, a systematic approach is taken to ensure that it's consistent and fair. The appendices set out the assisted policy, or sorry, the assisted bin lift and additional bin collection policy, and also note that it has been through the relevant screening processes in terms of rural proofing and the quality and good relations, and noted then the recommendation notes that the Council notes the contents of the report and agrees the attached policy for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for that. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I welcome the fact that we're developing policy in these areas. I think it's important that we have policy in regard to these sort of issues, and that there's clarity, therefore, as a result, around how we proceed in terms of the assessment procedures. Just one real question is, I note the numbers that have been quoted, in particular that the fact that we have 230 additional bins for non-recycling waste. With the introduction of this new policy, is it envisaged that there will be any reduction in the overall number of those bins, say within a 2-3 year period? Would this result in fewer bins, in the opinion of the Director? And is there any estimate of that? And secondly, will those who already have these bins have to formally go through an application process to continue to have those bins? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. John, do you want to reply?
Chair, in terms of what the future numbers would look like, every assisted bin lift and application for an additional bin is reviewed on a regular basis. I think that's set out within the policy. So therefore, the number of additional or assisted lifts and additional bins may vary from time to time, but that may be for a number of reasons. It's, either the householder no longer requires the service for whatever reason, and equally the number may go up because another household presents with that. And it's the member asked for an estimate. I think in 2.1 we've indicated that there's an expectation that the population within the district will increase over the course of the next 8 years, and in particular we're likely to see a significant increase in the number of people aged over 65. It's widely recognised that the disabilities can be age acquired, so therefore there's a likelihood that the number of requests that are received will increase in the years ahead.
Thank you for that. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, just a couple of observations on the report between the key issues 2.1 and 2.2. It notes that the district's home to approximately 46,000 households, and council currently provides 187 assisted bin lifts across the district. So at present, you're talking about 0.4% of the population. So it's, at the minute, it's a very small number of people that actually avail of this. I think anything we can do to promote it and get the message out there that this is available is a positive thing. The fact that, as the director said, the involvement of the Disability Advisory Group has been sought at such an early stage is to be commended, and again is a very positive thing. A note in relation to the first appendix, or the appendix that's attached. There's a note that it could take 4 weeks, 4 working weeks, 20 working days for a determination. Obviously, just given, I suppose, people's personal circumstances, you're talking there about 4 lifts of the bin between their application. Is there any consideration given to a temporary dispensation for those people, that the bin would be collected or the assisted bin lift would be granted until the appeal is here, or until the determination has been made, or not? And secondly, I suppose, and it's noted in the report there on page 5, in relation to the certificate, the medical certificate or signature, that there's a possibility, depending on the relevant medical professional, that they may seek a payment for that. So I'm wondering again, from council, we're dealing with people who obviously need assistance to get their bins lifted. Is there any encouragement that can be offered by council to those medical professionals who may be signing such certificates or signing such forms, that they would waive a fee or not charge a fee to the vulnerable people in our society and across our district? So just really to query whether those things could be accommodated in the meantime, and thank the director for the report.
Well, we'll bring in Councillor Clark and then we'll come to John. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I see him behind the pole here, but that's... I had a constituent who contacted me last week, and they had, up until that point, their bin been lifted. It was black bin, but on the last collection day, I think it was Friday, they didn't lift their second bin. So does that happen normally, or is there some other reason? Because as far as I know, this person's circumstances haven't changed, and there is an elderly person in the house who does need more attention. So I can fill in and give you more details later on, John, but
maybe if you could give John the detail of that, Councillor Clark, would that work? Thank you. You want to respond, just John, too?
Thank you, Chair. And if Councillor Clark's happy, I'll follow that up with you after the meeting, and we'll look into that as to what happened in that particular instance. In respect of previous queries, the policy sets out a timeline that officers would aim to respond within 4 weeks, and if it's possible to respond sooner than that, that would absolutely be the intention in terms of providing a swift and a rapid service. I suppose haven't gone through the due process. In terms of the cost for medical certificates, that is, I suppose, it's an issue between the person seeking the medical certificate, and I appreciate that the comment was, is there anything that we can do to encourage, and I suppose that we can look at that in terms of the overall messaging around this, but that's ultimately a decision for the GP and the person seeking the medical certificate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, like most councillors, I've dealt with several of these instances with regard to the assisted bin lift service. The one problem I do have, it's on the paper C, appendix 1, and that's the policy itself. It's actually the 4th paragraph under item 1, assisted bin lift service. It says each application will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Where steps, gradients, or other health and safety issues are identified as part of the on-site visit, residents will be asked to relocate their bins to an area of their property or the curbside roadside. There's no cognizance taken on that paragraph with regard to what the medical report states. I had one case where one occupant was bedridden and the other occupant, who was the carer, more or less had taken a stroke and was very limited. And their house was actually about 50 yards from the public road. And the only approved site it ended up was on the public road, which leaves the bin more or less not obviously being accessed on a regular basis. I wonder, can we put into that paragraph that cognizance is taken on the on-site visit of the medical conditions of the inhabitants? Otherwise, I'm quite happy to approve and propose the policy, but I think that one, especially, it's okay in the towns, but those living in the country where they are isolated and there's some distance from a road, I think cognizance must be taken of that if the house is some distance from the public road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Chair, and thanks, John, for the report. I know I've been involved as a councillor for Roma. I've been involved in several of these issues, and I suppose when you look at the year 2030, some of us will hit that magic age. So I think it's vitally important as we move forward that we get this right and take on board what Councillor Thornton has just said, and if that can be included in their report, so much the better. And I'm happy to second Councillor Thornton's proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank John for his report. In my experience, this is an invaluable service that we offer to our residents, that of providing assisted bin lifts and also an additional bin collection where that is necessary. In my experience, this is not a service that is abused. And I think, Chair, you'll agree that it's a fact of life that as one gets older, one becomes less fit, and there are often mobility issues, dexterity issues, balance issues, continence issues. So this really is a fact of life, and it is so important that we are able as a council to accommodate the needs of our constituents, particularly those who are old and disabled. I think I support this policy 100% and support Councillor Thornton's suggestions as well. In my experience, it is not a service that is abused. And I think probably if we don't provide this service and also advertise it, because I believe that many people are not aware that they can avail of an assisted bin lift, I think that we should advertise it more and perhaps advertise it in our info magazine, because
if people don't know about this service, they can't avail of it. Most people are responsible and they want to dispose of their waste properly. And in situations where they can't physically put their bins out, then we as a council should be able to support them. In respect of Councillor McAleer's question regarding the fee for completion of these reports, I mean, I think that is a matter for negotiation between the patient and the GP. All private medical reports do attract a small administration fee. I know that in my own practice, if there is exceptional financial hardship, that fee would be waived, and often is. The other approach might be, and this is something that is adopted by the department in the case of applications for blue badges or disabled badges, is that when an application is made for one of these badges, the department will write to the applicant's GP requesting supporting information, and then the fee for that information is paid by the department and not by the applicant. So that would be another route that we could explore, Chair. But overall, I'm very supportive of this policy, and I want to thank John and his team for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Curry.
Yes, Gurmagad Cairley, thank you. Yes, on the medical certificate, I would actually be opposed to that being in this policy. I think it has been outlined that, relatively speaking, we're dealing with a small number of lifts across the district. I don't think you could say that that's in any way being abused, and not all GPs do charge for medical certificates, and I think it's a disgrace actually that any of them do, because it makes that difficult for people, particularly, you know, in this it was difficult before the cost of living crisis, but when you're having to fork out 10 or 20 pounds for something to be signed, I just think that's abhorrent actually, and I think we should remove that from the policy, and I'll make that a proposal, Chair. The other point is just around the review process. Once people who are having existing bin lifts, and people then who would be applying, and that would be reviewed after 2 years. I think if there could be maybe an extra step put in there, because who, you know, with the assisted bin lifts, that is generally people who, you know, there's health issues there, certainly mobility issues there. There may be disabilities or other types of, you know, things affecting the person at the time. And I think, you know, sometimes just a letter can kind of get lost in the whole thing, you know, depending on what the person's dealing with at the time, or maybe they're not able to deal with that themselves and may, you know, need somebody else to be doing those. So I wonder, would it be possible to put a step in there, and it may need to go into the application end of it as well, just around contacting by phone. So if the people included a phone number, if the council hadn't heard back, and again, Chair, I don't want this to be onerous on the council, but and I appreciate what John's saying, that there's potentially going to be a growing number of people, but it's a relatively small amount of people. You would imagine that the majority of people will return the letter, but in cases where they haven't, maybe if there could just be a follow-up phone call. We're doing this for the benefit of our residents. We do assisted bin lifts to help residents who just aren't in a position to be able to put their own bin out. So I think we just need to, that needs to be what we're talking about here, and assisting that as much as we can, Chair. So those two proposals. I'd like to thank John for the report. Overall is very good, but those are just my 2 points with it, Chair, and I do make that formal proposal that the need for the medical certificate comes out. I think we have something in there that there will be a visit. And I appreciate that our team there might not be qualified, but I think can make an assessment based on talking to somebody and taking their word for maybe having difficulty putting a bin out.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McGann. Sorry, Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Happy just to second Councillor Corey's proposals there. She's made them points very well, and I'm happy to support them there. So
okay,
happy to second that for me.
Thank you. Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank John for the report as well. I was going to second Siobhan's proposals there, but Stephen has done it there, and I totally agree with him. But I was just going to mention one other thing there when I am talking here. Now, maybe it's my own fault, but I didn't even know this assisted bin lift. We used to do that, so I think it's a great service to be provided, and as other council says, it's very low numbers that's using it. But I do, this neighbour of mine, he's in his late 80s, and I had to put the bin out for him. I've been putting it out this last year or so. And I had to go in and chat for 10 or 15 minutes on a Wednesday evening there. I was there this evening before I came to the meeting there and chatting with him. He kind of lives on his own. But what I'm hinting, and Howard hinted on this earlier on, he lives in a lane, it's not that fierce long of a lane, but it's out in the country, around my area, there's a lot of people living in long lanes. There's people living in longer lanes. If they were looking for it, would there be fit to go in a long lane to lift a bin for somebody? I know them trucks is very big. It's just kind of a point. I was just wondering, is that did they do that, but I had to do it for this scale, like it's not that long, but I was just wondering, is there any, does that happen? Does it ever happen in an instance like that if somebody's living in a long lane?
Thank you, Councillor. We'll just conclude with Councillor Warrington, and then we'll ask John to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think Councillor Feely hit the nail on the head there, where a lot of people don't know that this service is available. And certainly on the back of Councillor Deehan, I think it would be certainly a benefit if we could make it known that this facility is available. And certainly, again, going back to Councillor Corey's comments on the costs of the GP's letters. I don't think anybody is going to. I think it all is going to take is a visit from a council official. I don't think it's a case that if somebody is genuinely disabled, that they're going to milk the system to try to get an assisted bin lift. So I think the three good points there from the other councillors, and I think those all need to be taken on board. Thank you.
Thank you. John, would you like to cover some of them points, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for those comments. I start, I suppose, with the awareness of the assisted bin lift and the additional bin collection service. It is something that we've talked about within the Directorate, that subject to this policy being approved by members, or subject to a decision by members rather, that would be accompanied by awareness raising through our social media and through other council communication channels. So I mean that is a point that's absolutely well made. There was a question, and I suppose a number of members touched on it, and it was Councillor Feely noted that as a neighbour that he currently helps somebody, and that's something that we have that we've considered, that we do want to continue to encourage good neighbourliness, and and in many cases the numbers reflect the fact that there are many good neighbours across the district who do help some of older and disabled residents. And I don't think as a council we wouldn't want to discourage that sort of activity and that sort of behaviour, and it's to be welcomed. And in many cases it's family, extended families, and next door neighbours that are helping. There was the health and safety considerations is part of the policy, and obviously as council we have a responsibility, a duty of care towards our staff in terms of the collection of bins and the provision of all of our services. That is a particular issue. There was an example given of a long lane that in many cases may be a private lane that may not be in particularly reasonably good condition. And there will be specific examples where we'll have to take those health and safety considerations into account in the assessment of all of the applications. The members had discussed and proposed that the medical certificate would be removed from the assessment process. I suppose I would just note that the availability of a medical certificate is an independent way of being able to verify the need for it. I think within the policy we do recognise and we do talk about that each application would be assessed on a case by case basis, and that does provide the latitude to take individual circumstances into consideration. I think we would just flag the risk that to remove medical certificates completely may expose the system to the potential for it to be misused. I don't believe it is currently. I don't believe the numbers would suggest that currently. So thank members for all of the comments.
Okay, members, we do have a proposer and seconder, but we also have another proposal from Councillor Curry around the medical certification. I'm not sure, would members be content if the original proposer and seconder maybe that the medical certification was taken on a case by case basis and that was incorporated? I'll just maybe go to the original proposer. I know Councillor Curry had that it would be removed completely, but maybe we could come to an agreement on that. Councillor Thornton as the original proposer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy. My main point was that should be a consideration on the on-site visit, but I'm quite happy with the other comments.
Okay, and Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, Chair, I've listened to everything that's been said. I'm happy enough for that as well. Thank you.
And Councillor Curry, I'll just ask you as well.
Yeah, well, Chair, I wouldn't be happy with it being on a case-by-case basis. I think that adds to the council's workload, and how do you determine that? So no, I think it should be fully removed, Chair.
Okay,
Please.
no, that's fair enough.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I think the easiest way, members, is just maybe to take a vote at this stage. It'll be maybe the easiest way. So our first proposal was just the recommendations as is, was from Councillor Thornton and seconded by Councillor Thompson. So we'll just ask maybe if the vote could be set up first, please.
Councillors, just to make you aware that the vote is now open on WebEx. Just to remind councillors that this is a two-step process.
Okay, thanks, members. We've just got the figures there. So it's for is 16 and against is 19. so that falls. So now, members, the proposal would be the recommendations as is, but with the removal of the medical certification, which was proposed by Councillor Curry and seconded by Councillor McCann. Is that correct, John? Yeah. So we'll just put that out on a vote as well, please, members. Thank you.
Second vote is now open. Please remember this is a two-step process. Thank you.
You must get into my butt.
The poll is now closed.
Thank you, members. Sorry for the delay. So for that vote was 25, against 10, and there was 1 abstention. So that proposal goes through. And just to confirm, Councillor Curry, that change will be made on the application form as well, around the telephone number and the follow-up. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll move on to item 5.4. It's to consider report on hire services review. You'll remember from last month this was talked about in detail, so this is just a follow-up report. I would ask you to keep your comments brief. You have the report before you, so Councillor, or let John in, sorry, at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is a paper on hire services review, and as members will recall, this was discussed at the February 2022 Environmental Services Committee, and at that time members had asked for information in respect of full financial information, including the costs and income for the 5-year period prior to the COVID-19 pandemic that was associated with the equipment hire, information on the uptake and usage by community of the various items of equipment, and any HR and trade union considerations. Section or paragraph 2.1 through and table specifically tables 1 through to 3 and sorry 1 through to 4 provide information on the financial data and also the usage of the various equipment hire pieces. Table 2 sets out the number of hire events, and as is noted there, that has declined in the period 2015 to 2019 from 60 to 41. But perhaps more importantly, it's the number of equipment hire elements has decreased from 107 to 56. Table 3 sets out the income generated from equipment hire services against the cost of service provision. And in Table 4, members had asked for information on council grant-funded applicants who had also accessed the equipment hire services, and that information is set out in Table 4 at paragraph 2.9.3. In respect of trade union engagement, we have discussed this with TU representatives through the informal directorate level processes, And in the course of those discussions, it was noted that staff were content with the proposed discontinuation of equipment hire services, and that this move would not result in a change to staff numbers. 2.10.2 also sets out an update on the formal processes within the council for the mechanisms for trade union employee consultation and negotiation. Paragraph 211 then sets out proposed, or Table 5 sets out proposed higher charges in 2022-23 for the suction super vehicle. The recommendation for members is that Council approves the discontinuation of equipment hire services as set out in paragraph 2.1, Table 1, Part A, and the revised hire charges as set out in paragraph 2.11, Table 5.
Thank you for that. John, Councillor O'Coffey.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for this report. I think it identifies the value of this service that we provide as a council. Obviously, there's been a reduction in recent times in terms of the number of hire events and so on, but they're actually very high. If you consider it on a weekly basis, in many cases, is more than one event a week would benefit from this service. And at the same time, the net cost of providing this to the council is really relatively small, especially when you consider it on a per event basis. I do note in Table 4 the nature of some of these beneficiaries, the organisations which benefit from this provision on behalf of the council, the Lady of the Lake Festival, like the Earn Vintage Car Club, McHoy Music Festival, the County Fermanagh Grand Orange Lodge. These are major organisations, and I'm sure that they would, there's a reason that they're coming to the council to avail of this service. We heard last month how the cost of providing this is actually cheaper from the commercial private sector, but obviously there's a reason these events and community groups are coming to the council for the service. And I think it'd be a mistake actually when it considers the relatively small cost per event associated, that we should leave it. It's a service that enables community activity, cultural events, and entertainments and so on, all of which are beneficial for the constituency or the county, our council area. I'm not going to talk about the informal trade union engagement for obvious reasons, but I just want to propose that we would continue to provide these services in-house and not rescind them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's your proposal. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll second that. As we had done at the last meeting, I think. Looking at the figures given there in Table 2, as Councillor Coffey rightly says, if you add up the 5 years and take your average, you're talking 56 events per year. So that is indeed more than one per week across the district. And that's noted there that there are events where there are maybe more than one hire piece of equipment. I would have concerns too in relation to the figures quoted in Table 3. And I appreciate there were difficulties maybe getting some of the costs of service dating back to 2015, but the note or the use of the word estimated cost of service would automatically put a red flag, I suppose, for myself in relation to the costs incurred by the council. I appreciate that when researching the report, there was a genuine effort to retrieve that information, but again, because it's estimated and not actual, I would have a wee bit of a concern about that. But as Councillor Coffey rightly says, even taking that into consideration as kind of worst case scenario, the cost overall to the council isn't astronomical. And finally then, in relation to 10 or 2.10, and it was touched on there, the fact that it's only been informal discussions, and although it's noted that that's fully consistent with the agreed mechanisms, I wouldn't be happy proceeding unless there were formal discussions with trade unions and a formal agreement with them. So I'm quite happy to second Councillor Coffey's proposal. I think we should continue to offer this in-house, and I would be in favour of that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Robert Irvine.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think I talked the last time. I take a divergent view. I think the officers have researched this quite adequately, and a proposal was made to actually try and rationalise our service and our service delivery and what our employees actually do on behalf of the community. And I think this is an underused resource, and I think our staff could be better utilised doing other things. So I would go with the proposals as contained at item 7, and that's the recommendations 1 and 2. That's my proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker is Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I want to support Councillor O'Coffey's proposal. I think when we discussed this in Council originally, I did have some reservations about removing this service, because I actually believe that is a very valuable service. If it is underutilised, then perhaps it is because we don't publicise it enough. But even so, I mean, over 50 events per year is a significant number. And I think that if we are encouraging our community associations to run events, and we want to ensure that they have all the equipment that they need to provide that event in a safe and convenient manner, then I do think it is appropriate that the council should provide these facilities. Now, I have been in correspondence with John, and he assures me that it is possible to source these products from the private sector at a very competitive price, and I accept that. But when I saw the figures in this report, I actually was struck by how little it does cost the council to provide this equipment. And I think it's a shame if we don't continue to provide that service, because I think what we want to do is to be all the time looking at ways that we can support our communities in terms of convenience, in terms of reliability, in terms of having that support when they need it. And given that it is a small cost to our council, I think I would be against discontinuing this service. And I think what we need to do really is to promote it more and enhance it. And I'm certain that when the pandemic era is over, that we will see more of these very, very enjoyable and worthwhile community events that will require this equipment. And I think that is a good thing. It will promote community cohesion. And if we can play even a small role in provision of that service, then I think it's something that we should do. So I support Councillor O'Coffey's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. I would take the opposite view. These services are adequately provided by the private sector, and in many cases cheaper than the council can provide it themselves. So they're actually undercutting us. And it seems silly that we would maintain and store equipment when it's already available out there. So I would agree with my colleague, Councillor Irvine, and I want to second his proposal that we go with the officer's recommendations on this case.
Okay, thank you. Members, there's going to be disagreement on this. We're going to have to go to a vote. So I'll just let in the final two speakers in WebEx. Councillor Coyle, please be brief.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, I would be supportive of retention. Maybe we can keep it under review into the future, but when we are coming out of a pandemic, the events will be starting up again, and as a council, we are customer focused. Small percentage cost of it. Obviously, I hear on the other side that competitors are undercutting and everything else, but we are a trusted organization. We give out the equipment and we take it back. It is of top quality and there's no questions asked. And I think that we need to carry it on into the future and review it, and maybe again in a year, 18 months time, but see how things do pan out when restrictions have been removed. Thank you.
Thank you. and Councillor Baird.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, I'm lining up behind Robert Irvine and Sean McCloughery in this. This is a service that is adequately provided by the private sector. The private sector, who are our ratepayers, both in business rates and residential rates. And by us providing this service, we are undermining the private sector. This is not an area that council should be providing. If you look at the 7,567 deficit that there was in 2019, over 41 events. If my maths are right, that works out as subsidising each one of those events by £184. So at the possibility of being called a neoliberal again, I certainly will oppose the proposal that has been put forward to retain this service, because I see no need for it. There's an adequate service being provided by the private sector. Thank you.
Okay, members, thank you for your comments. Both members indicating in the chamber have already been in now, so we're going to take this to a vote. So request for a recorded vote, that's okay. We'll do a recorded vote. Members, for the first proposal we're voting on was by Councillor O'Coffey, seconded by Councillor McAleer, and that is that we would not go with the recommendation as is listed, but that would continue with the higher services offered.
The vote has now been opened in WebEx. Just to remind members, this is a two-step process.
Okay, members, so the results are as follows: for 21, against 12, and 2 abstentions. So that proposal is carried. We'll just ask John to update us on just how that'll progress going forward.
Thank you, Chair. Just noting that since we retain these higher services, and there was within table 5, we had noted that the suction super vehicle would, the proposal had been that it was increasing in line with the CPI that was detailed in the previous paper, and so we would just carry that, we apply those charges then to the existing charges that existed previously across all of the items that are listed in table 1 in this current paper.
Thank you for that, members. Okay. Councillor Coffey, your light's on. Maybe it says, sorry, that's okay. We'll move on now to item 6, Environment and Place Directorate reports. 6.1 is to note the update report on town, land and dual language signage. Just members, these reports are for information. So if you can, keep them brief. John, if you word on that report.
Thank you, Chair. This is an update report on road, town, land and dual language signage. Members had discussed this item or this issue at January 2022 Environmental Services Committee and requested that an update report be brought forward to a future meeting with more information and with information on signage specifications that are used across the district, the process of signage installation and the placement of signs, information in respect of dual language language signage, the supply and delivery of signs, and in particular then the maintenance management and resource implications. So the paper sets out that information in paragraphs 2.1 through to 2.6, and 2.7 gives a summary of some of the next steps that we're in that we propose to take forward over the course of the incoming financial year. Members will recall that they had previously approved a capital signage programme for the 22-23 year, and it's anticipated that capital budget will be delivered and will help us to reduce the backlog of signs that need to be installed now that we have a contractor in place and a procurement process to get the supply of signs. Also note that there'll be an ongoing programme of inspections, repairs and replacement of signage, and in particular members may wish to note the intention to develop a more or better process for the reporting and registering of broken, damaged or missing signs. And by way of indication, what we've looked at the minute is that which would be used for the reporting of street lighting that's defective. So the intention would be to take forward a number of steps like that. We're also cognizant of the backlog of approved dual language signage requests and damaged signs, and external support to be used to supplement in-house resources so that backlog can be resolved as soon as practicable, and certainly by the middle of the incoming financial year.
Thank you. John, Councillor Padraig Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. Very happy to propose the paper and indeed welcome it. Just one quick query in terms of Appendix 1, the Glen Locka, which the Irish language translation is not there because it is translated, but is there potential or plans to get this sign installed or pending, or do we know when that's coming?
Apologies, Councillor. I have just realised that column is blank. That's an oversight. I will, if you're happy, I will come back to you tomorrow and just confirm. But those are all of the approved signs. So it will either be pending or else it will be on order. I'll double check that it hasn't been installed, but I don't imagine you'd be asking if it had been.
No, definitely not installed, but thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And
Councillor Catherine Kelly.
All right. Thank you, Chair. John, I had a conversation with you today on the telephone regarding a number of signs in my area. Baroni Road, Camlock Road, Carrickbug in the village of Carrickmore. And you explained to me, that they are part of the backlog that I had reported last year sometime. But I just wanted to say, I forgot to say to you today that there's some of those roads that reported not being able to get an ambulance because of the lack of road signage. So I'm wondering, when you do start to roll out this backlog, is there any way to note or to accelerate the signage for roads where ambulances were having difficulty locating the home? Thanks.
Okay, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and certainly happy to any information or intelligence we have about that roads that fall into that category. Happy to certainly to take that on board and to feed that into the process of getting signs installed.
You happy to second that report just as well? Thank you. Councillor,
Chair.
Well, I'll come to you, Councillor Wilson. Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I have no issue really with this. I think it's an entire. The one issue I wanted to raise, and I'm hoping the proposer will accommodate a change to it, is the reference in 2.7.4 that due to the backlog, external support will be used to supplement in-house resources to enable the backlog to be resolved. So I take it that we're outsourcing the erection of signs. And I wouldn't be too happy with that, frankly. I think we need to see this service delivered by our own workers, and that this shouldn't be outsourced. So I'm hoping if the proposal will accede to the retention of this as something that can be done in-house by our own council staff. Thank you, Chair.
Well, it is only for information now, this report. So, Councillor, did you have your light on, Councillor McAleer, or maybe it's...
Yes, you know, it was exactly the same point, so hopefully it can be dealt with or addressed there.
Okay. Councillor Green is next there.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few queries. In relation to the material that the signs are, particularly the posts that the signs are attached to, I see you talked about that in 2015 that was agreed to have recycled plastic. I'm just wondering, in light of how easily they are broke and the amount of them that are broken through the council area, have we re-looked at that again? And maybe I missed that, but I don't. I know what was raised previously. And the other thing, the list. I think there's a non-resolved list of 123 or something roads that's still being processed. Would it be possible to gain sight of that list, or that list could be provided? Because I know I put in a number of roads and I don't see them, any of them on the to-do list there that's provided. But John, maybe answer them a couple of points.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll go to Councillor Wilson now, just when he's there.
Yes, Chair. 1.2, there are some figures here left or that the officers have brought forward. That there's 4,200 road junctions, which to me would probably mean about 3 signs at each junction. So that would be somewhere around 12,500, 600 signs. And that there's 6,000 road signs in other areas, and it says that's the minimum in other areas. So that I was just wondering, with those figures, the officers could. It's just I would like to have a rough idea as to what that's costing. There was some indication that the signs would run to maybe £600 each. But even they're running to only 400, whatever, I would like, just for the benefit of the general public out there, to an indication as to what it's going to cost to do our council area and how long that's going to be spread over. As well as that, is there going to be town lands included in the signs? And if they are they going to be dual language as well? And is there going to be Ulster Scots? I think that was agreed that there would be Ulster Scots included as well. So I'm just querying, is that happening? And as I said, just that would give a rough idea as to what it's going to cost. And I would just ask that maybe the officers could, not tonight, I'm quite sure, but I would like a rough idea as to what the total cost of that would be, and the makeup of the signs. And as Councillor Green is saying as well, the signs may not be of the quality that would be needed. I would also like to ask, are they going to be set solid in concrete, that if a car happened to hit them, is that going to be, what way are they going to be installed? So those are a few questions I would, and queries that I would like to have, and I would like to have just in the near future sometime an answer to those, please, if that could be possible. And I think it should be possible, as their figures are there.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Well, with 2 speakers indicating just on WebEx, Councillor Maguire.
Good morning, Carly. If I could just draw attention to Appendix 1 on the approval date, January 21, Ballybrack Road. The translation there, I believe, has, the translation, I believe, has a typo. I do believe it should be Boher Waljevrik. I don't believe that you should be in there. Just if I could point that out and request the correction. or is that the format that's going to be used? It may be just a typo.
No,
Chair
the
Margaret?
director has agreed or has noted that. Councillor Maguire, that's correct. Councillor Elliott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think at last month's meeting it was talked about the cost of this, and we did ask that there would be a brought back in this report sort of the total spend. I know as the last councillor spoke there about the cost of these signs, you know, yes, there is a broad figure there, but how much per sign is this costing is my question, and I think I asked that last month as well, but it's just not there. Thank you.
Okay, members, there's a few. John.
Okay, thank you, Chair. In terms of, I'll work back through these, and the cost per sign is approximately £350 per sign plus VAT. That's for the provision of signs in general. Note that the typo that has been that was highlighted in Appendix 1, I'm sure that's corrected. And then in terms of there was a request for some clarification around the figures in terms of the number of road signs. In terms of road junctions, that figure is provided more to illustrate the extent of the road network across the Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area. Road junction signs wouldn't be the responsibility of council. And the 6,000 figure, I suppose, is indicative of the figure that was also provided within the paper where we talked about over the last 20 years. The Fermanagh and Omagh District Council and the two previous organisations had replaced somewhere in the region of, I think it was 5,650 signs is the number that we have referenced within the paper. In terms of the placement of signs, yes, with paragraph 2.1.2 table 1 sets out the general specification for road signage, and also provides information on the way in which they are bedded into the ground, and members will note that concrete bases are used for road and townland signs. The policy is a dual language signage policy, and I believe, but I'll defer to others who maybe know better, but the dual language request would indicate the second language that would be used in a request from a member of the public or from a resident or from a councillor. And go back to the comments in. So yes, the signs include the Appendix 1 provides examples of the road and townland signs, and you can see that within those the townland information is included, and that same townland information would be included in dual language signs over the page in Appendix 1 as well. And note the final comment, the use of external support will be to supplement in-house resources. Obviously, the staff will be involved in the installation of these signs alongside, and the use of external resources if that's necessary.
Chair, I don't think my questions was answered there. I know they were a long way back at the beginning of all of that, but neither of mine was answered.
Have you got an answer for some of those queries as well?
Sorry, Councillor Green, that was to do with the signage materials that are used. I think the question was had it been reviewed? No, the materials that are being used are the materials that were previously approved by council in 2015. I don't believe there's been any formal, a formal review of the specification of the signage since that time.
Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Hold on now, members. Don't be buttoning over the chair, please. Councillor,
thanks,
have you a
Chair.
quick comment?
My question about the list of 123 being provided and where the ones that I put in are, and just on the material, I think that we had a long discussion about the suitability of that recycled plastic at a previous meeting. And my recollection was that was going to be relooked at it and see is it fit for purpose. But maybe that didn't get through the the system. Could John just clarify that, them 2 wee points? And thanks, Chair, for letting me in again. Apologies for butting in.
Okay. Are we going to just John News?
Yeah, so, Chair, certainly we will. I will investigate that in terms of the suitability of signs and come back to the member.
Okay.
Chair, just in relation
and
to
the list.
Yeah, just in relation to the list, Chair. For the dual language, the list is increasing all the time. Members will be aware that we revised the policy and we held all applications which were received until the policy was agreed. And now, and I think I reported it last month, that we in order to get an indication as to the number of residents who are on a particular road or whatever, we have to go to the electoral office in Belfast. I think there was an action coming out of that, which has been completed in writing to the electoral office in trying to make sure that we get an electronic version of that. But that is not the case at this point in time. We are allocated 15-minute spots in order to go up and to check the residents of a particular line. And therefore that is a very slow process. We are in the process of doing that at this point in time, but we can certainly provide a list of the 124, which I imagine is increasing on a daily basis. So yeah, the 124, I can certainly send that out to members by return tomorrow.
Thanks for that, John. Thank you. Councillor McAleer, you have been in now, so just very briefly, please.
Chair, thank you and I commend you on your chair in the meeting so far. Just very briefly on 2.7.4, and I appreciate John's just touched on it there, but in relation to the external support, has there been any negotiation or conversation with the trade unions of the council workers in relation to employing that external support?
Okay,
Thank you,
and
Chair.
Councillor McElduff, are you
Chair, just 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I'll come to you, Bert. I will. Just Councillor McElduff.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
thank you,
okay.
Chair.
No problem.
Just keen to see progress in this matter, and anybody that drives into the Mid-Ulster Council area will see, how well this looks, how inclusive it is, how reflective it is of what people want. And in this area, it should never be underestimated, the strength of the tradition of the Irish language and the level of interest in the Irish language, not least among young people. It's a great agenda for the future. Any classes that are organised online or physical, by sporting organisations, by community groups, by the council, are very well subscribed. And so I know we've moved past the rationale for this and the justification for this, but I'm hoping that in that list will be Lammy area of Oma, where there has been specific requests by the residents, and the Turquin Road. I'm aware of that as well. But I would say gently to Councillor Wilson that he should come forward with a positive agenda for Ulster Scots culture. He will find willing partners on our part when he comes forward with positive proposals to do with promoting the Ulster Scots culture. It shouldn't be used all the time as an attempt to block. It shouldn't be used in a knee-jerk way. It should be a positive agenda. And I mean, look at Wales. Look at the situation in Wales, how culture is respected in Wales would be an example. And if anybody was in any doubt, perhaps go to Brian Friel's play translations if you ever get the opportunity as to where the place names emanate from around here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, members. Now, Councillor Wilson, you've already been in, and John will get back to you on some of
Yes,
that.
I'll only be 1 minute, Chair.
Very brief
Just an answer to, yes, well, maybe I'm wrong, but 99.9% of my memory is not good. Indicates to me that I had brought this forward, that Ulster Scots would be included in the agenda, and it was that I believe it was Councillor O'Coffey that seconded it, and it was approved, and that's why I'm asking. So I'm not knocking anything up or down, Councillor McElduff. But it is, I'm 99.9% sure that it was approved, that both signages would be part of the new signage, and I'm 99% sure as well as that, and I'm sure he'll remember better than me, that it was Councillor O'Coffey that seconded it.
We can certainly research back on that for you, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah.
And finally, Councillor McCaffrey, please. your hands up there, Chris. Okay, members, we don't seem to have Councillor McCaffrey just at the minute. We had it proposed by Councillor Podrian Kelly and seconded by Councillor Catherine Kelly. There was just a query around the external contractors, Councillor Kelly, from Councillor O'Coffey. Just let you in on that a wee second.
Just a quick query. Do the council have all the resources and staff that they need, or do they have to go external? I know that myself and Kevin Goodwin and a few
Hello, Chair. Can you...
had to have a
hello.
meeting.
Sorry, hold on,
I'll
Chris, a wee minute.
You can let Chris in if you want.
Chair, can you
Yeah.
Go ahead,
hear me?
Councillor. Hold on, Councillor, I can hear you, yeah.
I know that myself and Kevin Goodwin and a few other Irish language activists within the community had a meeting about translation. So do the council actually have the relevant resources and staff resources and, you know, translation resources? Or if you had an answer to that before we accept that?
John, I suppose the worry might be that it might slow the process maybe as well if we went without these, but I'll let you in on that, John.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose the comment at 2.7.4 specifically related to external support with the installation of the new signs rather than the provision of translation services. I think Director of Community Wellbeing has described the process and some of the challenges in terms of dual language signage. So I think that's a separate matter in terms of dual language signage. The use of the external support would be intended to expedite the installation of the signs that have been previously approved, and that, you know, for instance, those that are noted in Appendix 1. Alongside the routine replacement of damaged and missing or vandalised road and townland signs.
Yeah, so that's just clarity on that, Councillor Kelly. It would be supposed to be used to assist.
Yes, I know that, but I was just, do the council actually have the relevant amount of people? I think the people on the ground have waited long enough for these dual language signage, and you know they deserve to have them up as soon as possible. So I'd have no real bother with having to go external.
We'll take the proposer and seconder members, and I'll ask for if there's dissent on that. Any dissent, Councillor McAleer? Oh, there was a question around the trade union as well. John, if you.
I'll just refer maybe the member to the the previous paper and the processes that council has in place in terms of formal trade union engagement and opportunities for informal engagement.
Okay, members, is there any dissent on the proposal? We're not taking any more on this topic because we have a lot on the agenda, Councillor O'Coffey. So we have it proposed and seconded by Councillors Podrian Kelly and seconded by Councillor Catherine Kelly. Have we dissent? Councillor O'Coffey and Councillor McAleer in the chamber. Is there any dissent on WebEx? We have Councillor Keenan. Okay, members, so that's passed with the dissent of the three councillors. Okay, members, we'll move on to item 6.2, is to note the update report in the Tullyvar Joint Committee. Members, you've had the minutes before you and the report. Can I have a proposer and seconder, please, for noting? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, it's just I wasn't in at the start, declaring interest.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Councillor McAleer?
Sure, I'm not sure if you need to be a member to propose the noting or whatever, but just a query in relation to 4.4, and I appreciate, again, we can't answer it tonight, but to ensure that it's been taken on, the water sampling issue and the fact that the number of monitoring or the level of monitoring has been reduced in relation to the annual sampling. Just a query in relation to, I suppose, whether that's been okayed with the relevant environmental body or a regulatory body that matches up, that we're not just leaving water, potentially contaminated water, unsampled. So I suppose if I can propose the note, and I'm happy enough to do that, but I'd like just a note to be made of that, or maybe a follow-on query in relation to that be raised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can a member that's not on the committee propose? Yeah, is that or I think it is. Yeah. Councillor McAleer propose. Okay. Do we have a seconder, members? Councillor McCann, thank you, Councillor. And follow up on that query by Councillor McAleer. Thank you, members. 6.3 is to note the report in the Northern Ireland Local Authority collected municipal waste management statistics, Q2 provisional estimates from July to September, paper G. This is for noting as well, John. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the purpose of the paper is just to give an overview of the Q2 reported statistics and note that this is a routine reporting. Previously, members have had Q1. Key points at the Northern Ireland level are set out in paragraph 2.1.1 through to 2.1.4, and then specifically key points for Fermanagh District Council at paragraph 2.2. And in particular, I suppose it's some of the statistics that are noted in Q2 around waste arisings, recycling, energy recovery, and landfill. And just I suppose note at the end that in Fermanagh District Council, 61% of all waste sent to landfill in the period was biodegradable. And that's the second highest figure reported, with Belfast being the highest figure at 62.1%. So the recommendation is the council notes the contents of the report, the paper, and then the appendices set out appendix 1, 2, and the hyperlink at FLE. And just note that the hyperlink at FLE is that it's a spreadsheet that wouldn't transfer across into a PDF, hence the spreadsheet link.
Thanks for that information, John. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This is an interesting report, but I think the utility of it really is compromised by the fact that we're comparing a quarter with a quarter that where there was a surge in the amount of waste arising as a result of the lockdown and then sudden reopening. So I'm happy enough to note the one issue is I wanted to raise is around, I see we're relatively back to the same old cycle when it comes to dry recycling and composting rate, page 8 of Appendix 1. I'm conscious that there are numbers of ratepayers and householders in our area who have home composting units taken from the council. I'd be very interested to see a figure for that because I would believe that the likelihood is that these people are actually composting quite a bit on top of the figures that are captured in the official statistics, because those are obviously based on what we receive. So is there any way that we can highlight that? Because I think that is actually a very positive development. And again, it is something perhaps many people don't realize, that the council does provide these home composters, and the value of doing that if you're a gardener or if you're involved in anything horticultural is very significant, I think. So if possible, I'd like to see a little bit on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and that's proposed by Councillor O'Coffey. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, happy enough to support that and second that proposal. Just in relation to, and I can second the noting as well, I think, if it or propose if it hasn't been done already. Just to, I suppose, again, sound a wee word of caution around item 2.2.3 and the figures around energy recovery, or as noted in the appendix, incineration, and again, being wary of the involvement of ARC21 when they are strongly contested by the community up on Hightown Quarry and Mollusk, that there, I would just urge or sound an air of caution with their involvement in the latter part of the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Thank you. I was coming in there to obviously second Councillor O'Coffey's proposal around the home composters. I'm also wondering, would possibly look at a feasibility study, how much of the landfill rubbish, what percentage of the black plastic bags make up on that, and would it be feasible to look at the council maybe supplying, even at a cost, a recycle or a biodegradable bag for using for the non-recyclable rubbish that's going to landfill? I know a lot of it's biodegradable, but some of it obviously isn't. The black bags, obviously, once contained within the black bags, it takes it even longer before it even starts biodegrading, and maybe is that something we could look at, as well as also including what home composting's done within the statistics.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that something we could look at, John?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I suppose in respect of obviously the statistics and the limitations of looking at a quarter and comparing it to a previous quarter when we were in exceptional circumstances has been highlighted. I think the 2 points that have been made about then home composting and the supply of biodegradable bags. What I would note is that Council will be looking to develop a new waste management plan, and we'll be looking at the future provision of waste services, in terms of being fit for purpose into the future, given some of the legislative changes that are anticipated and coming down the tracks over the next 12 and 24 and indeed months and years beyond that. So I think those points about home composting and the supply of biodegradable bags are things that we can look at within the context of that modelling.
Certainly. Thank you for that. We'll include that in that. Okay, members. We'll move on now to item 6.4, to note the report of the Director of Environment and Place Paper H. John.
Okay, thank you, Chair. 2 elements to this report for information to provide members with an update on eco schools within the Fermanagh Noma District Council area in the year 2021-2022, and then to note welfare facility improvements at household recycling centres and a planned temporary closure at Dromore Household Recycling Centre to allow those improvement works to be undertaken. I suppose in particular the Dromore one, just draw members' attention to that. The intention would be that we would seek to close that facility for a period of 3 weeks, starting on the 9th of March through to and reopening by the 30th of March. The users would be signposted to the closest alternative sites during the period of those works, and we flagged it up at the local site and on our social media.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dan Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I propose to note, just a comment really, Eco Schools, to commend the biodiversity team. This is great work. I've been around a few schools in my previous capacity as chair, and the enthusiasm among the staff and the schools is really, really evident. Also, really pleased to see the welfare facilities. That was initiated by comments from Councillor Curry when she was chair, and when I was chair also noted the facilities there. So that I'm glad to see those for our employees at the recycling centres. Just to commend the report and propose the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Matthew Bale.
Thank you, Chair, and very similar to Councillor Armstrong. Thank you for the update on the Eco Schools. I remember back when I was at school, I was part of the Eco School Club, and it was very enjoyable and certainly helped in cater a love of the environment, which I'm sure there'll be hundreds of other young children going with a similar experience. So I'm happy enough to second the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bale. With Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in to welcome the improved welfare facilities that are going to be installed there in Dromore. And I know that the local residents in the area had been concerned that there was suggestion that perhaps at a time there was worry that it would close. So I hope this will make the public in Dromore realise that at least the council are investing in this facility so that it's here to stay. So I'm very glad to hear of the welfare facilities being installed. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McAleer.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a fairly brief comment in relation to the Eco Schools Green Flag project, which obviously is a very welcome project, and noting the slightly above average figures of our district council area. But I suppose guarded against that, we're still talking about just over a third of the schools which have been involved in that. And not only that, then 2.1.6 notes that 16 schools have lapsed accreditation. I'm wondering, is there any way in terms of either extending accreditation or revisiting that accreditation for those 16 particular schools? And again, I suppose seeing how best we can implement or extend this project, that more schools in the area are eligible for it or able to participate, given the obvious interest that the young people have in relation to biodiversity and the environment and that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank John for his report, which I fully endorse. I'm very excited about the Eco Schools project, and I think compared with Northern Ireland overall, we have done very well. I'm not sure, Chair, if the 2 years of the pandemic has really shifted the focus a little bit away from the eco projects. But I do think it is so important to involve young people in their formative years, you know, to make them aware of the importance of issues like their environment, climate change, the importance of biodiversity and protecting all the wonderful species that we have locally. I think it's something that our children are very excited about, and I would like to see all schools getting the accreditation. So I certainly support Councillor McAleer's suggestion that we could maybe explore ways in which we could encourage schools who have had their accreditation lapse to re-engage with the project. I'm sure they'll find it very worthwhile. And finally, Chair, just to recommend and commend all of those involved in improving the welfare facilities at our recycling centres, very necessary, and it's important that we have been able to progress that. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Curry.
Yes, Gormagada Cairley, and thank you. Thanks to Diana and Josephine there, just noting the names on the list for the welfare facilities that are upcoming now. And from memory, it actually came about when I was on chair's duties just before Christmas. As the chair, it's customary to go round, you know, all of the different sites, and though that includes the civic amenity sites, and certainly some of those that are on the list stick in my mind as having been pretty poor working conditions. So I'm really, really delighted just to see, you know, the progression on this, and thank the team there for that. Just on the eco schools, and I was in contact with John today just with some questions, and just like to thank him for coming back to me on that. I do think just, and John had explained in that about the accreditation lapsing, and that happens if you haven't reaccredited, I think, within the 2 years. And just given that it has been a difficult 2 years, and schools have had much more, I think, on their minds, and trying to stay open, keep staff there, and keep students there too. It's probably not been a priority for a lot of schools. So if there is any way we could follow up, particularly with those schools that have lapsed. I also thank John, just because I'd been asking if there was possibility of a list, because I know us as councillors, and indeed some councillors are teachers here, but we would have contacts, or we'd be regularly meeting through different ways, teachers and school staff. If we knew which schools were and weren't accredited, there'd be something we could be promoting as well, notwithstanding the great work that the biodiversity team's doing. And John advised me there is an interactive map, you know, that councillors just who might be interested can look up, and you can see what schools in your area. Unfortunately, in my DA of Air North, there weren't any on that map. Maybe just Mullineskea coming in at the edge, although it sits in Lisbolaw, and on the Enniskillen DA. So if there is any way that just making the shout that if there is any way that there could be just engagement with the schools in our north, and I'll try my best as well, Chair. So just to make that point.
Thank you. Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, and thanks, John, for the report. It's the thing out of a big interest in is the eco schools. I remember when my young kids was at them, they really enjoyed it and got a lot of fun and learning out of it as well, you know. But they're gone from primary school now, so as Siobhan says, I'm not even sure if the school is involved in it now, but it was that time. But I was coming in on the recycling centres here as well, and it's great to see work going to be done on them 5. And it's much needed. But I wonder after them 5 done, is there any more on the list? Is there any more the recycling centre is going to get any work done to them? And maybe I should know this. We could have got a report before saying it was, but I'm not sure whether there is or not. So just wonder, does John know? He might know it at the minute, but could let me know sometime. Thanks,
Okay.
Mark.
Just finally, if we can keep this moving, members. Councillor Armstrong, you were already in. Had you just a quick?
Yeah, thanks for letting me back in, Chair. Yeah, just a little update. I know when I was visiting the eco schools last year as Chair, Bleak is certainly an eco school, and on Friday I was in Kesh and they are an eco school. So I wonder if the interactive map could be revisited to see in terms of accuracy of information. So that's the understanding I have of those 2 schools. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's them few comments and queries around that. John, can we take them on board? And
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Certainly, the points in particular about the accuracy of the map, we will feed that back to Eco Schools, Keeping All Ireland Beautiful, who maintain it, and also note the observation about provision or the schools that are currently registered in Erin North, and welcome the comment about extending the reach of the project and engaging the lapsed, and I think members have touched on why that happens. So
I think the proposer and seconder will be happy to include that and from that to them proposals on that. Thank you, members. We'll move now, members, to Community and Wellbeing Directorate reports, and 7.1 is to note the building control and licensing report for the 18th of January to the 14th of February. This is the monthly report. John, is that correct? Is there anything, just a proposer and second, members, please? Councillor Garrity is proposed and seconded by Councillor Rainey. Is there any dissent, members, or happy enough? Thank you. Okay. Correspondence 8.1 is to note correspondence for the 11th of February from the Department of Infrastructure regarding various planned road improvement schemes. John.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, thank you. This was a response from Department for Infrastructure in response to a letter that the Council had written on or sent on the 6th of December, asking for an update in relation to the A32 Omagh Skilling Road and asphalt resurfacing within the district. As the letter concludes, perhaps not with no additional information that it's currently out to tender, and that the new work will commence before the end of the financial year.
Okay, this is for noting, members, as a proposer, please. And a seconder for noting. I have Councillor Robinson and Councillor Armstrong. You happy to second? Okay, thank you, members. We'll go to item 8.2 is to note correspondence dated the 22nd of February from the Department for Infrastructure regarding repairs at Endestar Road, Rosslea. 8.2.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And again, just as it's a response to an email sent at the start of February in relation to, as you said, the repair of Endestar Road in Rosslea, and Department unfortunately confirming that they have no plans to carry out any further work during this financial year, and confirming the date of the last inspection.
Okay, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the department don't plan to do any of the work. There's 40 residents along that road that signed the petition. I do believe the call for the work to be done. There was repairs done previously, as the letter states, but they have deteriorated and the work has been described as inferior. And it goes back to what some councillors were talking about earlier on. The work that has been done is very, very poor workmanship. Whether that's a case of, you know, a quick fix, low budgets, I don't know, but yeah, very disappointing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keenan. Yep, the issue about quality maybe might get picked up from earlier correspondence, but this is disappointing, members, but it is for noting, so we need a proposer and seconder for noting. Councillor Catherine Kelly and a seconder, Councillor Robert Irvine. Okay, members. The next item of correspondence is 8.31, and this is from the Department of Agriculture, Environment, Rural Affairs, and this is some questions that were forwarded from as a result of last month's meeting. I do believe we're still seeking a meeting with this, so
Yeah.
I'll just bring in John maybe before.
Yes, Chair, you may remember, I think it was at the January meeting that we discussed the Northern Ireland Water Framework Directive Statistics Report, and following that, there was representations made to the NIEA, and a number of members were asked to provide any questions which they had in advance of a meeting, which we would seek with the NIEA. The list of questions you will see in the correspondence there, and the answers from the NIE in relation to that. As the chairman says, we have requested a meeting with the NIE in relation to the water statistics reports, and we are yet to get an agreeable date for members in relation to that.
Okay. Councillor McAleer, this is, but if I could just ask you to be brief maybe, and if some of the issues more could be raised at the meeting once that's forthcoming. Thank you.
Chair, thank you. Just a very brief point in relation to the last item, and hopefully it's nothing too major, but I note in the decision time and the attachments, people's contact addresses and names, phone numbers, and that's available. I'm presuming that's just on WebEx, it's not on the website, or not externally accessible, maybe just.
I wouldn't. So.
In relation to this one then, it started going through it earlier on, but in relation to the feedback, it's quite confusing, quite lengthy, but I would just like to propose maybe that either our environmental health officers, or possibly public health, or indeed NIEA, would be invited to clarify maybe what these matters actually mean for our area, because it's kind of fairly waffly in relation to the response given. There's a number of links there, but in terms of detail for this particular area, it's not really specified. And given I suppose the dangerousness of the substances we're talking about, the long-term life of them, I think it's very important that we do really look at that. And just in relation to the measuring point or the testing point that's mentioned in the Owen Killy River, being quite a distance upstream from the special area of conservation, it's unclear whether the NIA information what possibly could have caused such high toxic pollutants, which are noted to be found at the point in the river so far upstream in the Sperrin Mountains, and I'd imagine there must be some sort of an explanation. So I'd like to, I suppose, pose that question directly to the relevant body. Thank you, Chair. I'd make that as a proposal, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm happy to second that. This is very good questions, but the answers are very concerning, really. These are forever chemicals. There is no time frame. These things just accumulate in our atmosphere. The three that are given, mercury, we all know what that does. It's a toxin. Affects a lot of your body organs. Brominated diphenyl ether is hormones, thyroid. It's a liver toxin, and benzopyrene is a cancer causing substance, and it's high in the Owen Killy River, as we see, but it's moderate everywhere else. And that there's a lot of questions in here around how this could happen. For example, was it the combustion of waste? That's about the only way it could have happened. And we are obviously located with prevailing winds coming from the Atlantic. They're not going to come from the United States. So we are aware that this has happened somewhere locally. And, this is stuff that's going to affect generations to come. And very, very concerning that they only reported this this year, and the first time ever of the WFD this year. And yet it was known about in the 1990s in Europe and so on. So, not good.
Okay,
Thank you,
well,
Chair.
we'll record that as well. And with Councillor Curry and WebEx.
Yes, Gurmagada Carley, and thank you. Thanks to John there too, because I was just going to suggest that it's interesting reading now. It did raise a lot of questions though when I was reading it, and I was just thinking, I'd forgotten actually, Chair, that we had invited them in. So I was just going to propose that we do that, that we have all the people here rather than a kind of a back and forth with letters and communications, that we can have that conversation and ask those questions and put them to the relevant people. So just apart from that, just propose a note, the correspondence, Chair Gurmugget.
Thank you. So that's proposed by Councillor Curry, by seconder for noting of it, Councillor O'Coffey. That query from Councillor McAleer, I think maybe if we could wait till we get a meeting arranged, and that could be forwarded even maybe in advance of that then, because we can't have letters going to and forward really when if we are going to meet them, Councillor McAleer.
Chair, yeah, I was just going to suggest then if it could be forwarded maybe to them for a response.
Beforehand, once we get a meeting maybe arranged. Is that okay, John? Okay, thank you, members. That's proposed and seconded and agreed. Members, we've dealt with the rest of the correspondence there earlier in matters arising. At one item, is that correct, John? Yeah, at one item of AOB from Councillor Keenan, it's something that was raised with by other councillors, I think maybe with the Chief Executive. So if Councillor Keenan wants to sum it up, but I think an action maybe is forthcoming at next month's meeting in the form of a report. Councillor Keenan, are you happy with that? If you raise your hand, maybe you'll get in then.
Hello, yeah. Yeah, there's been an action taken by John Hughes, but yeah, I'll just go over it quickly. I've been contacted by a group of local parents who've sadly lost infants or babies, and they're working along with a charity, and what they want is, or what they're hoping is, to get a wee piece of land, hopefully from the council in the Fermanagh area, to have a small garden of remembrance for these babies who've sadly passed. So we've got agreement that the council officers will work with the group and bring a report to the council. So hopefully it'll get support from everybody.
Yeah, thank you for that outline. Thank you for that outline. And Alison has, there does hope to be a report coming to the April meeting. Councillor McAleer, as proposed by Councillor Keenan, just.
Thanks, Chair. No, very happy to second that. And I know I saw a post from him earlier on social media about that. I think it maybe specified the Enniskillen end, but just to make sure if there could be a replication of that in the Oma end as well, because obviously there's families right across the district that have been affected by that. So very happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and all agreed on that, members. Thank you. We'll get that report next month. That'll be well. Okay, can I have a proposer to go into confidential, please? Councillor Garrity, and a seconder, Councillor Matthew Bell. We'll just put the recording on again. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll ask Director John Boyle to sum up whilst in committee.
Chair, whilst in committee, members considered the confidential business of the Environmental Services Committee of the 2nd of February 2022, and there were no matters arising. Members also considered a service level agreement in respect of a private company for the enforcement for litter and dog filing.
Thank you. If we could have a proposal for that report, please, members. Councillor Earl Thompson and Councillor Robert Irvine to second, and all agreed. Thank you, members. That brings us to a close, and well, thank you for your help tonight in getting through the business, and wish you a safe home. Thank you.